Stella Creasy went on Instagram and tried to defend the Proscription of Palestine action whilst pretending to be concerned about wanting to defend protest.
It is a mess. Nobody who saw the scenes at this weekend, when lots and lots of people were arrested protesting, can think that this is the best of British democracy. And it is absolutely critical that we get right what we do about the fact that violence against individuals and intimidation is increasingly being normalised as part of political campaigning. Observation number one, yeah, you're right. Those of us who voted for Proscription need to be clearer about the basis for that. Now, that is more complicated than it should be because the evidence presented to us about the use of violence against individuals is part and parcel of court cases and so couldn't be part of the parliamentary debate. But I will share with this video a number of links to the reports about those examples and the repeated targeting of individuals for intimidation and violence, and also the High Court documents that show that the initial request by the security services and the police for Proscription, because that threshold of direct violence had been met, was made in March this year. Now, that is before the attack on Brize Norton. So the call for Proscription predates whatever happened at Brize Norton, and it centres on those violent acts.
I mean, what I think Creasy is doing is misinforming people, right? We covered it on one of our previous shows, but if you didn't see it, we talked about leaked documents obtained by Declassified UK. In those documents, it showed intelligence officials clearly stating that Palestine action posed no threat to national security and they were not a violent threat to people. Yet Creasy is talking about the difference between violent acts and direct action. Palestine action has never committed violent acts, but they have committed criminal damage, which we already have laws in place that deals with it. But due to the Proscription, we have, I don't know, literally old grannies being arrested for holding up placards. Her concerned trolling does absolutely nothing, especially when she voted to prescribe Palestine action. I mean, what exactly did she expect would happen? And her saying, oh, well, it's a mess. Well, maybe you shouldn't have voted for it if you needed more clarification. Even if you wanted to prescribe them, but now you're like, oh, actually, this is a bit complicated. Then why did you vote for it? Did you not have more questions to ask? The doubling down from Labour, arresting people on streets for holding signs and lying to the people about how violent PA actually are is disgusting. I'm trying to be really angry about this whilst still being a little bit sick. It's quite difficult, but I'm so pissed off it's coming through anyway. It's so much so, actually, that even real-life Alan Partridge, Richard Madeley, brought up some good points when interviewing Labour victim minister Alex Davies-Jones.
Has the government got a bit of a tiger by the tail here in prescribing Palestine action when you see that kind of protest by that kind of person?
We don't support terrorists in the United Kingdom, Richard. Would you be asking me that if this was about the IRA or Hamas? Palestine Action are a prescribed terrorist organisation.
Well, you make a comparison with the IRA and with Hamas. Of course, you could say the difference here is that the IRA planted multiple bombs. They operated with snipers. They were a very deadly force in these islands. And Hamas, of course, is responsible for what happened on October the 7th, which was a pogrom. I guess what I'm suggesting to you, and I'm not implying an opinion myself, is that Palestine action, whereas it may have done, as you say, some collateral damage to machinery by spraying it with paint, isn't quite in the same league.
That's violent criminal damage to RAF aircraft, of which is a national security measure. These are a prescribed terrorist organisation, Richard, and we do not support terrorists in this country.
Oh. Why wouldn't someone think of the RAF parts? Oh no. I mean, look, Richard makes the salient point that the IRA and Hamas have killed people, right? Spray painting planes is not violent. Yeah, I mean, look at her facial expression, right, when she's giving the answer. Like the anger and vitriol when she says it. You know, it's those planes and equipment that is helping Israel commit terrorism abroad. They're facilitating a literal genocide. I have such a strong sense of repulsion against this government. Not dislike, not disagreement, but hatred, right? Scumbags who have blood on their hands gaslighting us telling us that we're wrong. Ben, before we talk about Labour's overall response to the media over arrests, what's your take on Stella Creasy's defence of the prescription?
Yeah, I did just want to talk about that for just a second. That interview footage from Richard Madeley at the end there, because it occurs to me that it's a very circular logic to go, why is Palestine Action a proscribed terrorist organization? Well, it's because they're a because in this country we don't support terrorist organizations, and then but why don't we support this organization? Well, because they're a proscribed terrorist organization. There's a very kind of circular line of logic going round and round and round there without a proper answer. And so someone has clearly told Stella Creasy, okay, go out and make it look like you've put out an answer. Then people who haven't watched the video will think, oh, so you do have an explanation. It's just, you've put that online. Cool, you put out some kind of answer. So what were the things that were good about what Stella Creasy was doing there? One, her lighting's not bad, right? She's using a ring light. You can see it's reflected in and she's also using a teleprompter, because if you listen to the way that she says certain words, it's clear that she getting to the end of a sentence and then going, oh, and then realizing she's got to finish the end of that sentence. I like that from politicians. We need more of that, please. We need more stuff like that. But we'd prefer it from politicians who are on the actual left, of course. I said I was going to be kind and do the here's the positive things about the video. The negative things about the video, it can be debunked in a single sentence, right? We can't tell you why. Okay, don't prescribe them until you can then. That's it. That's where the conversation should end. You can't prescribe an organization and then tell people, oh, well, we can't tell you why we prescribe an organization. And this isn't me supporting that organization, by the way, just being very clear about that.
It's not just them saying, well, we're prescribing this organization. We can't tell you why we're prescribing this organization. It's also, I think, lying to the public, because they're saying, well, we actually have information to say that they're violent. In fact, Yvette Cooper said, not all is of it seems when it comes to Palestine Action. But once again, we have leaked documents that literally show officials say they pose no threat to national security and they're not violent. And yet there's nothing within these leaked documents that suggest why they were prescribed. In fact, Stella Creasy admits, and obviously we got it for the leaked documents anyway, but Stella Creasy admits that this wasn't based on the spray painting of the RAF. In fact, it was as early as March. In fact, it was as early as 2024. But even if we say it's as early as March, that just goes to show that they were going to prescribe them for a long, long time. And what grounds was it? I mean, they can't say because they broke into the RAF base, because that was obviously afterwards. Even though, to me, that's not enough to be prescribed. But they can't even use that as an excuse.
So yeah, she posted that video and she said, we're following the trail of evidence here. So they've put Stella Creasy's video up and said, okay, the evidence is hidden in Stella Creasy's video. You go to the video, and Stella Creasy said, oh, I put evidence in the description. You go to the description, and in the description she's posted a bunch of links, right? But it's Instagram. You can't click on the links, and you can't copy the links to put it in another browser unless you open it in on a computer browser. And most people are going to be seeing this on their phones, right? And she said, when somebody pointed this out to her in the comments, you can look underneath. It says apologies, as in apologies, and it says that she was working on it, but that was a day ago. She hasn't posted it to her Twitter like people were suggesting. It's again this thing of oh, the evidence is just there, but we can't show you it. So from what I was able to discern from the evidence that was posted underneath from those links, basically it comes down to there was one incident of the use of a sledgehammer to cause criminal damage, and saying that people were carrying it as a weapon. So that's, maybe two counts, criminal damage, but also it's a weapon that could be used. Okay. And another case of fireworks or pyrotechnics being used against security workers. Right. I don't condone these. These are criminal acts, but they don't constitute terror offences. They don't constitute enough to get somebody prescribed, in my opinion. I don't know how people feel about that more generally.
Well, I mean,
and again,
to be fair, I think there is a clause in the Terrorism Act where it does say that you don't have to necessarily commit violence against peoples, you can commit violence against equipment and stuff. And technically, you could prescribe Palestine action because it meets the threshold. But I watched a fantastic interview, and actually it was an advisor to like one of the royals, actually former advisor to the royals, and he gave it an excellent answer when he was posed that question. He said, look, if you look at the Terrorist Act, I think it's like TA 2000, one little clause in it, which says actually you don't have to necessarily commit violence against people, then Palestine action could meet that threshold. He goes, yeah, and the Terrorism Act is 2000, the year 2000. It's now 2025. This is the first group that has been prescribed under the Terrorism Act that hasn't committed violent acts against people. So yes, there may be a slight clause in there, but it's funny. In 25 years, there's been one group that's been prescribed under it, because no sensible person would actually prescribe it. One group in 25 years, and it's funny. It's funny how it's against Israel and the ongoing genocide, and it goes against Western foreign policy, as if this isn't politically motivated.
This is true, and typically in IR, in international relations, terrorism is usually defined as offences and violent offences committed against civilians and civilian populations in order to influence political outcomes, and it has to be done specifically by non-state actors. Which in this case, like Palestine Action, wouldn't come close to meeting that definition. Like, they don't commit violent acts against civilians, at the very least. You know, military equipment is one thing, but civilians, that's not meeting the definition here. Again, not defending Palestine Action, not saying that they're not saying that I support them. I'm saying that it doesn't meet the definition, the typically used definition of terrorism, because almost every other group that you can name under terrorism that's prescribed under terrorism legislation meets that definition. They meet the definition. They they commit violent acts against civilians in order to influence a political outcome, and they are non-state actors.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.